think we're all blessed and highly favored with the opportunity to show up in the world and be whoever we choose to be and create the impact that we choose to be able to impact in the world. We can create that. And I think that, individuals that do have this higher power as a part of their life that lives in their heart and soul, they can show up greater in every facade or in every avenue that they decide to take. You have the opportunity to show up not only with just yourself and your own being, but you have the opportunity to show up with a higher power, and that higher power is superhuman.
Welcome to the Superhuman Life. I'm your host, Frank Rich, and this is the only podcast in the world dedicated to helping men break free from the shackles of addiction through the power of faith and fitness. It is our goal with every episode to help you take back control and rebuild your body, mind, and spirit. And we do so by bringing you real and raw conversations with people just like you, aiming to find their place in this world while dealing with the everyday struggles and battles that we all face. Now, it is my belief that we were all created for a specific purpose. And if we can harness that belief or faith, then take control of our mind and body or fitness, then we can ultimately create the life that we've always dreamed about, our own superhuman life. I want to let you know how grateful and blessed I am to have you here with me today. Let's get on to today's show. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another amazing and very exciting and impactful episode of the Superhuman Life. As always, I am your host, Frank Rich, and guys, I'm so incredibly grateful to have you here with me today. What a jam-packed, powerful conversation we have in store for you today. I have an incredible guest on the show, and I'm going to get into introducing him here in real quick. But for those of you guys that are new here to the Superhuman Life, let me just thank you for joining us here today. Let me thank you for tuning in, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Apple or whatever podcast platform you are. We're so incredibly grateful to have you part of this community. It's my hope and goal with this show to help men take back control of their lives and step into the life that God created for them to live. And we do that through the conversation that we have here with all of our guests. But before I get into introducing our guest today, I want to share something with you guys. I get a lot of questions, Frank. How do you do it? How do you run, multiple businesses? How do you show up for the podcast? How do you build Rebuild Recovery? How are you still running things over at Frank Rich Fitness and all the other projects that I'm currently working on? Well, I'm highly engaged with my sleep and my schedule and whatnot, but there are times where I have to look at taking some supplementation. I don't talk a lot about my supplement regimen here anymore, but one thing that has really helped me here in these last few months in developing some of the projects that we're working on is by me supplementing here with Mental Trigger by Redcon 1. Mental Trigger is a brain performance or cognitive performance supplement. A couple of the ingredients inside of it are alpha GPC, which releases the neurotransmitter acetylcholine inside of you, which facilitates learning and memory. And then when you stack that with teacrine, which is an incredible supplement to stimulate your central nervous system. Guys, what this does is this is, like I said, it's a brain cognitive performance enhancing supplement. It's really going to get you dialed in. Now, you take it first thing in the morning. I like to take it before I have anything creative that I'm trying to work on. You can take it before the gym. You could take it, really at any time. It does have some caffeine in it. So if you're sensitive to caffeine, maybe, start with half of the recommended dosage. But it is definitely something I don't take every day. I take it a handful of times a week, like I said, when I really got to focus in on dialing some projects. Now, another really cool thing, and they're getting more and more research about this. We talk a lot about dopamine here. So for those of you guys that are looking to maybe increase some of your dopamine, alpha GPC will actually help in increasing some of your dopamine. So that is Mental Trigger by Redcon 1. I'm going to link down their website in the show notes or in the comments or in the description box here on YouTube. And if you use code T20 Frank R, it'll give you a 20% discount off of your purchase of Mental Trigger or anything else right there on the Redcon 1 site. So make sure to check that out, guys. But today's guest, what a jam-packed conversation we have. Now, my guest is a very close and dear friend of mine, William Grazione. William is the CEO of The Educated Dieter. He also holds a BS in exercise science and is a pro natural bodybuilder. Now, for the last 10 years, he's been working with thousands of clients, teaching them the foundational skills of becoming an educated dieter. He and his team over there, they're really focused on the education side of things. And I'll tell you, when I was scheduling and getting ready for this conversation, I really thought Will and I were going to go deeper into some of the nutrition stuff. But about about 10, 15 minutes into the conversation, we took a turn that I wasn't really prepared for. And you'll hear Will say it in the conversation that the topics that we discuss are more important than maybe some of the nutrition stuff. We dive into some of his background. We dive into some of the adversity that he had to deal with growing up, in somewhat of an abusive home. He shares his faith and how at a very young age he knew that there was more to this world than what we just see here in the material side of things. We talk about prayer, we talk about spirituality, we talk about scripture, and really what this message is really all about. Because Will and I both launched companies, or he pivoted in his company. I launched a new business right at the beginning of the pandemic last year. So how were we when so many people were struggling financially, when so many people were losing their jobs, when so many people were losing opportunities? How were we both really able to see the opportunity in the obstacle? And guys, I think that's what today's conversation is really about. How facing adversity, about facing challenges, about turning those obstacles into opportunities can really be your calling. It can help you step into the life that you were created to live. So guys, I really hope you enjoy this conversation. I'm incredibly honored to share this one with you. Will is an amazing brother of mine, and I'm just so excited to share him with you guys today. So I hope you get as much out of this as I did. If you haven't done so yet, if you want to help us continue to grow this message, we do always appreciate those ratings, those reviews, the subscriptions right there on YouTube, whatever you guys are doing. That's highly appreciated. But without further ado, guys, let's get into today's conversation with William Grazione, turning obstacles into opportunities.
William, my brother, welcome to the Superhuman Life.
Frank, my man, thanks so much for having me on, dude.
Absolutely, man. This has been one of those conversations that's been a long time in the waiting, and I'm just so excited to really dive into you and the work that you're doing. You know what I truly love about you, and we're going to kind of unpack some of the things that you're doing with Educated Dieter is with the world of online coaching. I mean, it's something that has just really, I mean, in the last year with COVID, it's gone to an even another level. But in these last few years, you've kind of seen this growth in the space, and I think you and I have a similar kind of belief about the whole coaching space. You know, it's funny. One of the first episodes we did, actually episode 4, was with a mutual friend of ours, Brian Klepacki. We talked about some of the dangers of just coaches and trainers in general. How it's kind of been this thing, you've seen it. I mean, you've been in the game for a super long time, but it's like, you go through a physical transformation yourself, or maybe you step on stage for the first time, and it's like, now you become a coach. Now you quote unquote become an expert. And he and I talked about some of the dangers of working with those type of people. And I know everything you do is based around the educational side of things. So I'm really excited to, kind of dive into how you got to this point, in your career, what led you to have such a passion for coaching, have such a passion for education, and then really unpack some of the things from what you guys are doing with Educated Diet, and hopefully give our listeners here, some tools that they can really walk away with and begin implementing in their lives. So why don't we start here, with the first thing is let's just get a little bit about kind of your background in your journey. I know growing up you were an athlete. I know you played college ball out there, a couple different schools out west. But where did fitness and health and the desire to work with and coach people, where did that come from in your life?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So, number one, though, I do want to say just thank you so much for having me on. Obviously, we see each other all the time, and we've kind of talked about this occurring. So it's really awesome to see you on the other side of the camera and have this conversation to be able to provide some
Yeah, no,
value to your audience.
yeah, it's great. I mean, I had a talk with another one of my good friends. It's like we've had so many conversations that probably should have been recorded and would have had value for others. So now we actually sit
I
down
say the
and
same
make
thing
it
all the
formal
time,
too.
bro. I say the same thing all the time with my assistant.
Yeah.
But yeah, how I got involved, man. Health and fitness was something that I found early on in life. So every single person in my family was overweight, and I knew that. I knew that they weren't healthy. I knew that there could be something that could happen that could help improve the quality of their life. And so, interestingly enough, my uncle actually got me involved in lifting weights. He bought me my first weight set when I was 6. Okay,
Wow.
and people would say, "Dude, you're like 7 years old and you lift?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So I was always the young kid that would be like flexing his muscles, but I had no idea what I was doing at the time. I just knew that I enjoyed doing it. because I had a very traumatic childhood, very traumatic upbringing with my dad and my mom and stuff like that. And so I always needed something to help me exert energy that I was
Mm.
keeping bottled up inside, right? And weightlifting for me was that thing. And honestly, I didn't know I was doing anything different than any other kid in the neighborhood until I started playing youth football when I was about 12 years old. And I show up the first day of youth football, and I was more muscular than everybody else. And I was like, oh, I guess this is what working out does for you. Like people like looked at you and they're like, dude, your arms are big. And I'm
Mhm.
like, I don't know. This is just what, I didn't know it wasn't things that other young kids did. But the cool thing was, Frank, was that through having that development over those 5 to 6 years before I actually started to actually play youth sports, I developed muscle mass that was later in my life respected. And as a
Mm.
12-year-old kid, all we want is for, people to see that we're working, we're worth something, we have value, and we're good at things, right? So my strength kind of carried over into playing football. I excelled in football through youth, through high school, through college, and just realized that the foundation of my passion was health and fitness.
Mm.
Even as I was going through college playing football, I realized at one point that I actually enjoyed working out more than I liked playing football. Because every single year, playing football, you basically build yourself up to break yourself down. And it
Mm.
was just this repeated cycle, off season, in season, off season, in season. And I always felt that I actually wasn't capable of reaching my true potential in terms of my health, my muscular development, my strength, things like that. And so I ended up majoring in exercise science and nutrition at Bacone College in Muskogee, Oklahoma. And when I graduated in 2009, moved back home, and I just immediately started my work as a personal trainer. And so I guess maybe that's maybe where we'll stop there and maybe then go into maybe some of the natural bodybuilding stuff. But that's kind of how I got involved, was just because I started lifting weights at a very young age, and I immediately had a lot of confidence because I was stronger than a lot of my peers. And that carried me off into college to play college football, and then ended up majoring in exercise science.
Got it. Yeah, no, I definitely want to pick up there with the natural bodybuilding stuff. I mean, I was reading as I was preparing for today, 45 plus pro cards like under your belt as a coach. Is that all in
Yeah,
that
yeah.
all in the natural space or and yeah, that's actually let's go there. So I mean, you made a choice. I mean, I would say at a very young age that you were going to stay the natural route. I've talked openly about kind of my bodybuilding, you can call it quote unquote career. The time that I spent
Yeah.
as a bodybuilder. I didn't choose the natural route, and
Mm.
I don't regret any of it. I get a lot of young men that kind of reach out to me now, and I advise build a foundation, and I'm not here to tell anybody what to do. So yeah, speak to kind of and then I want to circle back to some of your upbringing. But if we can speak to kind of why did you feel the need to stay in a natural kind of federation with really the bodybuilding world being like truthfully there's not a lot of guys that become super successful in the natural world. So how did how were you in dealing with making that decision? Was it something you were so adamant that you were going to be natural and yeah, just kind of talk through your thought process with that there.
Absolutely, man. So I will say number one that I think I was definitely uh, genetically gifted. Like I said, my whole family was overweight, but my mom was more of like a heavy set woman, but she was very strong, and my dad was a very lean, like Italian guy,
Mm,
right? So I kind of got the best of both worlds. My mom, if you could kind of picture it, would be like more of like a Pacific Islander type of woman.
okay.
And my father, he was lean and Italian. So it's like I kind of came together. Once I started little lifting weights, I started to grow.
Mm,
And in all fairness, in high school, my football coach thought I was on steroids. He's like, Whatever you're doing, like you shouldn't be doing that, da 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 da." And I was like,
wow.
dude, I just started eating more protein and I'm starting to grow. And because I went from I had to always like suffer to play little league football, right? Because you have to make weight in those divisions, right? You have to be like 150 pounds, 155 pounds, 160 pounds, whatever it is. And I always had to suffer to be able to play, just because I was just more muscular than the other kids. I was stronger than the other kids. And with that being said, I was always without any enhancement. I was just always stronger than most kids. I got into high school in 10th grade, 11th grade, and I never touched any exogenous drugs or anything, but I would say I was always like top 3 in terms of strength at the high school, right? So all these other kids are using steroids, and I'm just like, I don't I'm already, my arms are bigger than yours. Why do I have to take steroids? Because my arms are already bigger than the
Got it.
guy that's taking steroids. You know what I mean? And so it was more so something that I just never really felt like I needed it. And then it was also the fact that I didn't come from having a lot of financial resources. I come from like very humble beginnings. So, the fact that like I saw these kids that had a lot of extra money utilizing these things and getting them from whatever black market or gym that they were attending, but I just never felt like I personally needed it. I remember sophomore year, maybe junior year, I was benching like 300 pounds. I was squatting about 450 to 500 pounds.
A sophomore,
And
junior in high school or this
yeah,
college?
yeah, high school.
Wow.
And deadlifting 450s, somewhere around there, power cleaning close to 300 pounds, somewhere around there. So I'm just like, why would I need to do that when I'm already stronger and bigger than the kids that are? And so the natural bodybuilding route for me, it was just the path that I knew that I could be successful in. Because in college, when I started to get more serious about bodybuilding, because I stopped playing football because I blew my knee out for the 3rd time and it was a wrap. And I'm like, I gotta fulfill this competitive nature with something, and I started to research like bodybuilding. And then I typed in natural bodybuilding one day because I realized that I was looking at, Jay Cutler, Ronnie Coleman, and all these guys, and they're like 270. And at the time, I was about 200 and maybe 205 pounds, maybe 210 pounds. But I'm looking at these guys, I'm like, there's no way that they got that way without using some type of steroid or some type of drug. And so when I typed in natural bodybuilding for the first time, guys like Dave Gooden popped up, Philip Ricardo Jr., Dr. Joe Klemczewski, Lane Norton. These names popped up, and I looked at these guys, and I was like, if I really train and I really get my diet in check, why could I not look like that in 5 years? Because I already had the foundation, right? So I think a lot of young guys, when they start lifting and stuff like that, they want the immediate gratification. Okay. I was totally okay with delayed gratification because I realized that if I'm going to be healthy, I don't only want to be healthy I don't only want to be healthy for the right now and gain 20 pounds of muscle in 3 months. I'm like, I'm okay with gaining slow amounts of muscle throughout the duration of my life and never putting any exogenous hormones in my physiology that's essentially going to alter who I am. And so when I found natural bodybuilding, I realized that and this was probably the biggest thing, Frank, was that when I found natural bodybuilding and I realized that some of the best natural bodybuilders in the world were only about 175 to 185 pounds, I said, I can totally do that. Because, I was like, I think I need to lose maybe 20 pounds to be stage lean. At the time, I had no idea I would eventually need to lose like 50. But basically what I did is I bulked up to like 230 pounds in college. And then my first natural bodybuilding show, I ended up weighing in at like 172. So I lost like 60 something, I think like 60 pounds.
Yeah.
And I used the methods that I basically learned through my own education. Yes, I have a degree, but they don't teach you a lot about nutrition in academia, or at least directly applied nutrition in academia. So a lot of the people that I learned from early on was people like Dr. Joe Klemczewski, who's like the OG of macronutrient coaching, and then Lane Norton. At the time, they were the only ones that were putting out really good quality information that was teaching natural bodybuilders how to be better natural bodybuilders. And so I found this information. Like, I didn't even have a laptop. I didn't have nothing. I had to go to the public library with some change in my pocket and print out these articles from the internet. And I start highlighting all this stuff about proteins, fats, carbohydrates, how to formulate a diet plan and all this. Yeah, so I prepped myself with that information and education that I got from the public library. Prepped myself for my first natural bodybuilding show. It took me about 12 to 14 weeks, and I won the overall. And from that point in time, I said, if I can achieve this look without using anything, without using any steroids, drugs, whatever, why would I ever need to take them? And there was never any interest for me to be like a 250 pound, monster per se. Once I
Mhm.
got down and I was as lean as I was at 175, and again, this is where I thank my parents for genetics, is that I felt like I had a body that people looked at me and they're like, he has to be enhanced. And so I never felt like I needed to use them to go into the MPC or the IFBB and stuff like that. It was more so just I found a niche in the natural bodybuilding world. And I tried to cross over a couple times. I tried to go into the MPC as a natural and see how I would do. And I won a couple novice titles. And then when I went to the Open in the MPC, I would get like second place, third place, fourth place. And I realized that those guys that I was competing against, most of them were enhanced.
Mhm.
And the time where I basically navigated away from ever wanting to compete in the MPC again, and there's no knock on the MPC, it's just, to each their own, was when I was at a bodybuilding show, and it was a larger show here in Florida. And I saw somebody walk into the bathroom stall with a fanny pack on. And when he came out of the dressing, he came out of the bathroom stall with his fanny pack. I noticed that he had these like pin looking marks on his body, so like his chest and his delts. And from what I know, he just got done injecting like some synthol or something into these
Yeah.
areas to make his muscles look rounder. And once I saw that, I said, I'm going back to the natural bodybuilding world. I really don't have any passion about that side. But again, no knock on anybody that chooses to use performance enhancing drugs. It just wasn't my path.
Yeah, no, I'm not here to, to knock anybody as well. I wish some of this stuff was more, and it's hard to put these kind of things like out into the public eye, but you see these, you see these monsters and you have all these young kids coming up and it's like they dream and they aspire and it's like they're only being shared really half the story,
Yeah,
what you
yeah.
talked about there on the
Yeah.
synthol. I want to
Well,
ask you
keep in
something
mind too,
here.
man, like that's what's attractive and that's what's marketable to the person that
Mm,
wants to see it. Right. So
yep.
like they don't want to see people that are 175 pounds, right? They want to see the freaks. They want to see the 300-pound guys stepping on stage. And I think even if you look back to maybe the golden era of bodybuilding, which was a very, very
Mm,
articulate, very aesthetic era, that to me, even enhanced, that to me is what bodybuilding could have been or should
should
continue
be.
to be.
Amen.
um, just because of the fact that the guys, yeah, were they using enhancers? Yes, but was the look less of a freak show than it is now, and was it safer? I think it
Mm.
was.
Yeah, I mean, look at guys like Arnold. I mean, what he's in his mid to late 70s, and
Hmm.
I mean, he's still still living. He's still out there,
Yeah,
active on whatever your thoughts are on what Arnold is involved in now is besides the point. But
yeah, yeah,
he was truly the one that I mean leveraged bodybuilding to get him to the next level. I want to ask you a question about self awareness because it's something that's just been like literally jumping out at me as you kind of shared from all the way growing up, kind of realizing from a very, very young age, at the age of 6, you're like, my family's not healthy and I know there could be something different. And then as you got into
yeah,
school, you're like, I saw the kids that, maybe came from more and how they were not as grateful and they were seeking kind of instant gratification. Where did, and it's obviously carried to your bodybuilding career as well. Well, where did this self-awareness come for you in your life? Did you have somebody from a young age? I mean, I know you talked about kind of some trauma, between, your family home. So did you have somebody outside of the house that was speaking into you, that was showing you, what self-awareness was, or was this just kind of a natural instinct?
no, so it's amazing question, and I think reflecting back on it, I just always respected my mother so much for what she went through with my dad and growing up and watching that, that I never wanted to do anything. In all honesty, I never wanted to do anything that I felt like would negatively upset her or, be harder for her within her life because she already had a hard road. And then I also, even from a young age, I knew that nobody in my family had ever gone to college. And so I
Mm,
had this kind of this internal pressure on myself to say, you're good at this thing, you better make it, you know? And so I never really wanted to do things that would alter that or mess that up. You know, even back to high school, you know, my dad growing up, he was an alcoholic. And so I experimented with drinking in high school and stuff like that, and experimented a little bit with smoking and stuff like that. But what I noticed was that once I saw the negative effects, and I just wasn't as alert, and I wasn't as aware, and I wasn't as good. I had to stop because I didn't want anything to kind of self sabotage my ability to make my mom proud of me, right? And so by me being the first person to go to college in my family, I got an athletic scholarship and all of that. The self awareness was essentially just that I want my mom to be proud of me. You
mm.
know, I want to change the picture of what a man is in my family forever. And I just knew that at a young age, man. Like I've had this conversation with a lot of people before, and you know, the question oftentimes comes up. It's like, how did you know at 2, 3 years old, like what good and bad was? And it's just because I saw it visually.
Mm.
I watched bad. I watched it happen so many times, and I knew that's not right. Like that should not be that way. And oftentimes with young men, you notice that they have a choice to make. It's either they're going to follow after their father and do as their father did, or they're going to decide I have this other path I could take, and I'm going to forever change the projection of what a man is in my family. And it starts with me. It starts right now, and it starts with me. I can do that even as a teenager, as a young man, whatever it is, you have the decision to make. That's all it is in my eyes. It was just a decision that I have to be better than my father was for us. And that's what I'm doing now for my kids and my family, you know.
God, that is powerful. You openly, have shared your faith. I mean, I'm looking at you right now. You have a faith over fear sweatshirt on. Was that something that was with you growing up? I mean, what you just said there with seeing bad or seeing evil, for me, that's what makes my faith so strong. Because I lived 35 years of the other side of things. I've been in places, I've done things, I've seen people, I've witnessed things that you cannot you cannot see and witness it and not know that there's a force of evil driving a lot of that. So, one of my favorite scriptures is Proverbs 9:10. The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. And how I interpret that is it's not so much the fear of God, but it's the understanding that if there is a God, then there's going to be the opposing force. And I've witnessed and seen that other side. So knowing that there's got to be, like, I 100% know for a fact that there is that other side, and that's what pulls me closer and keeps, it's one of the foundational pieces for my faith. So this
Yeah.
wasn't somewhere I thought we were going to go, but always kind of let the conversation guide us. Has your faith been there with you your entire life, or where did that come from?
Yes, that's a phenomenal question. And keep like Frank, I'm just an open book. So wherever the conversation goes, I just pray that it's helpful to the listeners, right? I don't care if we end up talking about science and all the stuff that we originally planned about, because in my opinion, this is more important.
Amen.
I had never gone to church as a child. Um, I had never prayed anything. But because I had so many of these traumatic experiences growing up as a young boy and watching my mom struggle so much and watching my mom overcome, and, you know, trying to find myself as a young man without a father, because, you know, let's face it, the world needs more good men to lead by example for their sons,
Mm,
so that we can essentially, you know, help the betterment of the world by being good men, right? Um, I knew I couldn't do it on my own, Frank, at a very young age. And I was battling a lot of demons in my own head. Um, you know, issues with confidence. I was not a confident kid outside of my physical ability. Outside the physical ability, there was no confidence there at all. I was in special education classes growing up. People would make fun of me for being Asian. I always, every single day, thought about my dad and what he did to my mom. There was like suicidal tendencies, a lot of stuff like that, even being a young kid. And because I had so many like weapons in my bedroom, I had knives, I had ninja stars, I had, axes, I had all this stuff. There, I remember distinct times where I would think back and I'd be like, man, I had that thing right in my gut, and I was just thinking about ending it for me, you know? And there was a voice in my head that said, no, do not do that. I have a plan for you. And
Mm.
it wasn't probably, I was probably 10, maybe 8 to 10 years old the first time I was going through something really, really traumatic. And I just jumped on my bicycle and I rode to the park to be all by myself, alone, so I could talk to somebody. There was nobody there, but I quickly realized that I could talk to somebody and I could get it out.
Mm.
And just so, and ended up having to be that person was God. Come to find out later on in life, the first time I'd ever gone to a church, that people prayed and people hoped for better and people, talked to this outside of themselves higher power. And so, yeah, I would continue to, after that, to go off and just pray all by myself. I would pray that I would be successful. I would pray that I would be a good man. I would pray that I would get a football scholarship. I would pray that my mom would be happy. I would pray that I would make her happy. And a lot of things. And honestly, whenever I had these hard times, I would just jump on my bike and I would ride up to the park and be all by myself and just talk to God. And so yeah, it's been a part of me, but I never really like identified myself as being a Christian just because at the time I didn't even know what that meant. I know people went to church, but I knew that I had a relationship with somebody in my heart
Mm.
that was very, very powerful. And that kept me going amidst, like I said, all the knee surgeries and everybody telling me I shouldn't keep playing football. Everybody in my family, like there was people in my family that made fun of me for wanting to go to college. You know what I mean? So there's a lot to unpack there, but at the end of the day, I knew that I needed something, a higher power outside of myself to be able to battle through the things that I had to battle.
We could end this right now and not get into anything dieting related or any of the science stuff. And this may be one of the most powerful conversations or segments of an episode to date, 66 episodes in. So that's something. I mean, well, I've known you here for 4 or 5 years now, probably. I mean, going back to 2016, 2017. I mean, we've grown here much closer, really since in the last year with us, being in the group together and seeing each other, almost weekly basis. And there was parts there that I didn't know about you, man. So I appreciate you for opening up and sharing that, because I know it's those pieces that really impact and change people's lives. So let's get back here to kind of that we're out of school now. We have this education. We're jumping into the personal training space. I know you got into online coaching before really social media was a massive thing. So what
Yeah.
was the decision for you to exit? Because I know you're working as a trainer in a gym.
Yep.
So exiting the gym space to move online. Like, what was the motivating driver behind that? And where, once again, I think there's a level of self-awareness here too. I'm going to bring it back to that because there wasn't an industry as it is today. I mean, you go on Facebook right now. If you're following the right people, you're going to get 17 ads and just scrolling through your page about become a fitness expert, build an online business. It's anybody and everybody's teaching how to grow an online
Yeah.
business. But back in 2010, that wasn't the space. So what was that kind of process for you, and how did that kind of begin with exiting
Yeah.
and then moving to the online space?
The self-awareness aspect is something that I think is probably the focal point in what I'm going to talk
Mm.
about. I could probably hit it in a couple different pieces that allowed me to know this is your path. This you have to go. Um, when I graduated from college, began as a personal trainer, it wasn't very long before I realized that, obviously dieting myself, going through that process of winning an overall at a bodybuilding show, building my confidence and being able to transform my physique to a level that, people would try to point me out and say, he's on steroids. Like there's no way you can look like that without it. Once I won that show, Frank, people started coming up to me in my gym and saying, dude, can you prep me for my show?
Mm.
And I was like, hmm, is this a thing? Like, is being a bodybuilding coach a thing? Because I didn't even know it was a real thing. I didn't know online nutritionists existed, didn't know any of that. So these were my close friends. These were my training partners. These were people that I was with in the gym training with every day that were asking me to help them achieve their goal of turning professional or winning a show. And I just said, yeah, man, let's do it. Because at the time I was so on fire about what I had just done. I went there and competed in a class of over a dozen guys, and I was the last guy standing. I'm like, wow, I'm a champion. Like if I win another one of these shows, I could be a professional. Like my whole life, I always wanted to be a professional athlete in something. And so the first was apply the work, use your brain. You won the whole show. Now I have confidence. There's something there, but I didn't know what it was yet. I started to help my friends. Within the first year of me helping friends, 4 of my friends turned professional. Okay. At the end of 2010, I turned professional amidst me helping my friends. Right. So then I was like, wow, I'm a professional natural bodybuilder now. I must know something that other people don't because they're not walking around looking like this, stepping on stage and winning. And they're surely not doing it the way that I was taught to do it, which was a lot less. And this could be a whole nother podcast episode, but it was a lot less extreme than a lot of the stuff that we hear about now, which is like the 2 hours of cardio, very low calories, zero carbohydrates, water elimination, and all types of stuff like that. And so that was probably the second piece, was that I realized as a trainer in Gold's Gym St. Petersburg, right there on 4th Street, that I knew things other trainers didn't. And I was like, I have something. I don't know. I have no idea what this thing is yet, but I have something. And then that very last show that I competed in 2010, I had the opportunity to meet Lane Norton. Okay. Now at the time, Lane had already been full time at this thing for like 2 or 3 years. And I asked him, I'm like, so what do you do? Like, I went up to him and I thanked him first because I'm like, all the information he provided on the internet, I learned from him and Dr. Joe. So Dr. Joe was his coach, and then he was putting out a lot of information about it. And I went up to him and I thanked him. And we started talking. We started to get to know each other. And he invited me over to his house one day. And I went over there and I was like, dude, what do you do? And he's like, dude, I'm a full-time coach. He's like, I've been doing this for, I think at the time, maybe it was 3 or 4 years or something. And I was like, you do this full time? Like, how many clients do you have? And he told me, and I was like, wow, this is real. Like, this could actually happen. And so when I realized that I had this information in my brain that I could utilize to transform people's bodies, I realized that I had something different than the other trainers had. So then I started to offer these services for a fee to all my clients that were in the gym. Eventually, Gold's Gym found out about what I was doing, and because I had clients posting about it on Facebook. Because at the time, Instagram didn't even exist, and had clients posting about it on Facebook. The gym found out, and they gave me an ultimatum. They said, "Will, we really appreciate you as a trainer. You're one of the best trainers we have, but if you're going to be doing this thing, we need 50% of everything you're doing." And I was like, all right, well, can I have some time to think about this, process it? Because I love being a trainer, and in equal parts, I'm starting to love being an online coach. And back then, it's so funny, but I mean, I used to send plans through the Facebook Messenger, through the inbox on Facebook, because I didn't have an email or nothing. And so I decided at that point I was working like three jobs at the time, and I just decided to go all in on myself because I knew that other people didn't know what I knew, and they didn't have this track record that I was building of helping people turn professional and get shredded. So yeah, I remember that. I remember that day very, very clearly. I walked in, and they kind of, the GMs and them, they stood up and they're like, "Will, you're gonna have to decide what you want to do. It's either you're gonna go and do your own thing, or you're gonna be 100% Gold's Gym, and that's it." And I called up Lane right after I left the office, and he was like, "Tell him to kick rocks, man. You're going online." And I said, "Okay." So from that point, I mean, the scariest moment was quitting everything that I was doing except for the coaching space and going full time online, because I went without a paycheck for like a solid month. And being that, I had already had my wife at the time was my girlfriend, and she had a daughter. I felt like I was a lot less of a man for a while because I wasn't able to contribute any funds to help us out with the bills and stuff. But then, I promised her that it would work. And fast forward a year after that, and whatever I was making from working 3 jobs, I tripled that in a year. And we never looked back, man.
That's amazing. And I think anybody that knows or is familiar with Lane, you probably said what he told you to say in a much nicer way than Lane said it. Um, I want to kind of dive into to the coaching side of things
Yeah,
here, and then I think we can get to some of the myths around nutrition and fat loss.
yeah.
But let me have you kind of articulate, the distinction between trainer and coach. I know coaching is something that is truly, probably, if not as big of a passion on from the nutrition education side of things, because
Yeah.
I see you talk a lot about it. I mean, I know at one point, excuse me, you had a company in an educational system for online coaches. So just
Mhm,
speak to kind of, maybe your take on the difference between trainer coach, because you said you left training to become a coach.
mhm.
So speak to, just
Yeah.
what people, speak to the differences there, and then what should people look for when finding or seeking out a coach?
Mm. That's a really amazing question. So, number one, the way that I interpret it is with trainer and coach is that most people think of trainer as being in the gym, personal trainer, the individual helping with exercise. Other people would also say that the coach is the nutritionist doing the diet plan and stuff like that. So that's the way that I'm kind of separating them within this conversation. But I can
Okay.
say that even when I was a personal trainer, I was a coach.
Hmm.
The reason why I say that is because when I would have people come in and pay me for like a 3 month package or X amount of sessions, I would tell them, I'm going to teach you how to lift weights so you can eventually one day come in here by yourself and execute these movement patterns. I can be way over there with another client and I can be watching you and I can be like, yes, I did my job, right? Because so many trainers, they want people to feel as though they need them forever,
Mm.
right? I didn't want people to feel like they needed me forever. I remember one time, Frank, going home and I told my mom, I said, Mom, I'm teaching my clients everything I know about how to lift weights. She said, well, why the heck would you do that? You're going to work yourself out of the job. And I said, no, you don't understand. I said, I'm doing this and they're referring me more people because
Mm.
nobody, any trainer they've ever hired, nobody ever taught them how to lift weights, how to execute movement patterns, how to feel what muscles they're trying to work. And she goes, well, you go ahead and you do what you do, but I think you're going to work yourself out of the job. And I was like, all right, whatever. But the exact opposite happened. Is that they would tell me, hey, I went and I learned how to work out from William, and then the next thing I know, I got people walking into the gym asking for me because their friend, whatever her name was or his name, told them that I actually taught them how to work out. So now I can just write the program and they can come in all by themselves. You know what I mean? And there were
Mhm.
so many times where I would have these women that would walk into the gym, slumped shoulders, head down, zero confidence. I would work with them for, 2 months, 3 months. Next thing I know, they're walking into the gym, chest up, head up, because they're confident now. They have their program. They could come in, they could work out all by themselves, so on and so forth. And so I think that's the difference between like trainer coach is that as a trainer, a coach kind of operates more out of a state of abundance, in my opinion. So like I want to openly give to you. I want to openly give to you so I can see you be successful. A trainer, in my opinion, is more so just come in, we'll get the session in. Probably not going to learn too much, but I'll see you 3 times a week for eternity. So
Mm.
you're not actually teaching the person something. Now, on the other side of this, where I segued from being the in-person trainer to being the online nutrition coach, I carried a lot of what I learned from working with people face to face into the online market. And I would argue that people that have the experience of working with people in person are better when they
Mm.
transition to working with people online
Agreed.
because you're more of an empathetic human, right? It's not just like you're just sending emails and stuff like that, but you actually want to get to know the person. Because as a personal trainer, I develop relationships with so many of my clients. But again, my goal was not to keep them forever. And so it was an education focused model. So when I went online, what I realized was that if I can provide the same level of education to these clients that want to learn about metabolism and macronutrients and fat loss, the same thing would happen. And so I openly gave my brain, gave my information to my clients. And over the course of time, people just started to trust me and we started to make educated dieters.
God, it's so well articulated, and I mean, it's something that I've held true to believe myself. I don't do a whole lot of fitness stuff these days. I saw the handful of clients that I work with, but that was something, even going all the way back to creating my first product online. Mastitic Muscle. It's a 200-page ebook. Like I literally wanted to give everybody, the 20 years of education, experience, and knowledge that I learned, and I said, here's this book. I originally sold it for $47. Like here's my lifetime of knowledge. And that's what I wanted, is I wanted to be able to pass on what worked for me, instead of keeping somebody chained to needing me as a coach. When I hear somebody, yeah, I've had a personal trainer, I see him 3 times a week and I've been seeing him for 3 years. And I'm like, why? Like, what, have they haven't taught you enough to move on? So I love that whole kind of belief system and approach that you've taken with your work and with your business. Let's slightly pivot here to the educated dieter.
Mhm.
I know that you launched this right at the beginning of 2020, correct?
Yeah, so when I felt like the pandemic was occurring, I decided to pivot. Now, you and I have really good mutual friend Dan Long.
Hmm.
And during the pandemic, when I knew that the gyms had shut down, stuff like that, I was like, "Hey, Dan, like I have a gym in my office if you want to come here and train, because I know obviously resistance training is very important to you." Da 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 da. And he showed up, man. Dan Dan showed up, and he was a focal part in my pivot. He was actually him
Mm.
and Joel were actually very focal parts in me even getting this office, because at the time I didn't even have the confidence in myself to go that big, and their podcast Born to Impact actually helped me through a lot of that. And soon after that, I decided to get the office. But yeah, when Dan was coming in, he was talking to me a lot about pivoting. And what I noticed was that the market that I was coaching, so it was like physique enhancement, it was bodybuilding competition preparation, physique competition prep, bikini competition prep. The shows were shut down, Frank.
Mhm.
So I say, I'm known for bodybuilding competition prep. There's no bodybuilding shows, right? So then I'm like, all right, well, what's the bigger picture here? And I started to think, what does the world really need? The world needs to be educated. The world needs to learn about nutrition and how it impacts their body. The world needs to know that. So what are we going to do? Well, at that time, I was already saying I create educated dieters. You could even look back to like Instagram, like years ago. I would have as my tagline, I create educated dieters, because back then it was only me. Now we have a team of coaches. But at that time, I said the educated dieter would be a fantastic name. I'm going to switch from metabolic evolution, and we're going to make the educated dieter, and we're going to harness our business on the reality that we can make educated dieters. Now, the whole purpose behind making the educated dieter, teaching them about their own metabolism, teaching them about macronutrients, what proteins, carbs, and fats and fiber actually do for the system, we're able to prevent them from going back and forth with the constant yo yo diet.
Mm.
Because what they learned from us is that there is a such thing as metabolic adaptation. And the longer they continue to go down that hole, the worse off their hormonal profile and their metabolism actually becomes over time.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, so many lessons, just life in general there, about looking at an obstacle and finding the opportunity in here. So many
Yeah.
people lost their employment, they lost their jobs, their businesses got shut down, and I did the very similar thing. I mean, I didn't pivot, but I launched a new brand, a new business
Yeah.
right at the beginning and into the middle of a pandemic. But I got to assume that it was just leaning on your faith here. So let's dive into to some of this dieting stuff here. Let's maybe speak to the person out there. Men in general. Perhaps they've struggled. They've struggled with weight their entire life. They'll hire a coach or they'll follow a program. Super restrictive. They lose the weight and then they put it back on, and then they lose it again and then put it back on. So here they are, they're kind of late in their, maybe late 30s, early 40s, and they're kind of like lost now. They're like, I can't even, I can't even drop the calories low enough. So where should somebody really start with, obviously hire Will or seek out his team, but if they're maybe looking to kind of do some of the initial research on their own in terms of becoming an educated dieter, where would be the best place for somebody to really kind of start there?
Yeah, I think it really just boils down to learning the fundamentals of nutrition before you start to attempt a diet. If you simply understand what protein does for your physiology, what carbohydrates can do for your physiology, what fat does for your physiology, and what fiber does, you'll probably make better choices in starting a diet plan. I think the number one biggest problem with people that are attempting to lose body fat right now, men or women, is that the approach that they take is too extreme and they can't follow it for a prolonged period of time, right? There's so many things blasting us in the face on social media of the 30-day challenges and the 60-day challenges and the 90-day challenges. But at the end of the day, if the challenge in and of itself isn't actually teaching you how to preserve the result for the rest of your life, then what is it actually teaching you? In my opinion, it's actually setting you up for failure. Now, granted, all of these different, I guess, methodologies, we have carnivore, we have the vegans, we have the ketos, we have all these things. If you can't see yourself executing this diet for 6 months, 12 months, 18, 2 years, the rest of your life, then you strongly need to reconsider what you're doing and think about something that you can actually adhere to. So, I guess the biggest concern that I see that comes through my inbox, we get inquiries every day, is that most people have tried something, whether it be working with a previous coach, working with a previous trainer, whatever it is, and ultimately they've gotten a result, and then the trainer kind of left them hanging at the end. And this is where the weight regain happens due to the metabolic adaptation and not planning for the end. So I guess I'll kind of just stop there, and because I think that's kind of encompasses what I think the biggest problem is dietary adherence and the fact
Mm,
that the method does not align with the long-term goal. It aligns with the short-term immediate gratification of how fast can I get this off
yep.
versus, well, maybe there's a more sustainable way to get this off that's not going to require me to suffer as bad. And I'm going to be able to keep more muscle. I'm going to be able to stay healthier. And if I plan for the end before I even start, there's a large likelihood that I'm going to be able to keep this fat off.
Yeah, no, that's great. It comes back to that seeking that instant gratification. We live in a world where we can really get anything we want, with just a small click of a button. Food will show up at our house in 5 minutes.
Yeah,
I
it's
was buying some
crazy.
stuff I was buying some stuff on Amazon this morning, and it gave me the
Mm.
option, like, do you want this by 10 p.m. tonight or tomorrow? And I was like, tomorrow's fine. Like, I'll be asleep at
Yeah,
10 o'clock tonight.
yeah,
So I get that. It's we got to build something that can be longevity. And
for sure.
I mean, I don't want to make this about how to work through that. I know one thing that you is big with your approach. I don't know if you would call it the IIFYM or if it's flexible dieting. I don't know if you really have a name to it. I understand the equation. Calories in, calories out. It does come to an energy balance.
Mhm.
I want your expert opinion here on, though. Like, there's got to be other factors, though, right? Like, I mean, what role does maybe genetics play? What role does environment? What role does your previous history with food play in that? I mean, we can't just look at the numbers, if I'm correct. Like, we got to take those other things into account. So you can kind of speak to, is it just about the tracking of the macros, or how do we need to look at this thing from an overall kind of, maybe call it holistic perspective?
Yeah. So to keep this direct and avoid going into different pathways, I will use the example of a healthy individual. Okay.
Okay.
So, what I mean by a healthy male or a healthy female is somebody that has no previous history of any type of hormone imbalances, history of birth control, history of low testosterone, anything like that. We're talking healthy people that exercise, that work out, that maybe try to live, a healthy diet, stuff like that. With many of them, the education of learning how to establish energy balance is one of the most important things that they could possibly do. Here's what I mean is that if, let's just say hypothetically, right now, if we were to take you and maybe based off of your energy expenditure, which is the thermic effect of activity, right? You working out intentionally, your non-exercise activity, thermogenesis, how much you move and move at your desk. I'm using a stand-up desk, so I'm moving around, I'm burning calories doing this. Maybe how many steps you take per day, how much cardio you do. There's a calorie amount that will essentially allow you to preserve your body weight eating that amount of calories, right? You understand that. And if we can establish what the energy balance is for a specific type of person, then from that point in time, we can then either decide to elevate calories for more of a muscle building stimulus, or we can decide to lower calories for more of a fat loss stimulus. If we're lowering calories below what your energy balance is, this creates an energy gap. That energy gap is then responsible for fat oxidation. Okay. So if you're eating 3,000 calories a day as a man, and you decide to lower your calories down to 2,400, let's just say, you're creating an energy gap based off the fact that we know your energy balance and your all of your exercise and stuff like that equates to about 3,000 calories as a maintenance phase. If we reduce those calories, we're making the gap, so you're going to start to lose body fat. However, this is where metabolic adaptation comes in the fact that you will begin to lose body fat. But if you don't plan ahead for metabolic adaptation, you can plateau, and now your 3,000 calorie energy balance has actually become 2,400. So then whatever fat loss you were experiencing is now plateaued. This is where you see guys saying, I lost 15 pounds, but then I plateaued. Or a girl saying, I lost 10 pounds tracking my macros and it was great, but then I plateaued. So, well, why did you plateau? If you would have came into this with the understanding that metabolic adaptation is going to occur, we would have planned ahead for the plateau.
Got it. So it's like preserving, some of our tools. I think so many people they go into a fat loss cycle or attempting to lose, and it's like ramp it up to training twice a day. I'm going to take a spin class in the morning and then go back and then I'm going to eat 1,000 calories, and then once that adaptation occurs, it's like you have nothing, you have no more lever, to really pull.
Yeah, I mean, you're throwing the minimum, everything at the kitchen sink, right? It's like
minimum
every
effective
single
dose.
tool I got. Now, our approach, very simply, is I want you to be able to eat as much as you can and do as little as you need to in order to see the result that you're striving for. Because if we do that, think about it in terms of finance, okay? If we just go blow all of our money, we're broke.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? But if we make a smart decision, we're not blowing all of our money and we still have more money left over to play with. The more money we have left over to play with, the more things we can acquire. Now, it's no difference in terms of fat loss, okay? If I'm eating, let's just say arbitrary numbers, if I'm eating 3,000 calories and I'm like, I just saw this new diet, this guy got super shredded in a month, I'm going to cut my calories in half or more. I'm going to start doing an hour of cardio a day. I'm going to start taking all these supplements. The thing is that you're spending everything you got in the beginning. So slower will oftentimes lead to a better result long term because you're actually forcing less of an adaptation. Our bodies respond by how we treat them. So a caloric deficit or a reduction in calories and an overage in cardio, okay, is actually a stress on our system, male or female. Women, however, are hit way worse than men, okay? So the female physiology, what makes a woman is progesterone, which is the calming and protective hormone, and estrogen. The thing that makes a man is testosterone, okay? These are very important sex and stress hormones that need to be taken into consideration when somebody is dieting, trying to lose body fat. And so, I guess just wrapping that up, having some awareness around the fact that your diet does not have to be the most extreme in order to achieve a specific result should be the primary thing that you consult with your clients about before they go into a fat loss phase. Also, what I reflected back on previously was dietary adherence. If I just lower your calories and I say, do this, the likelihood that if you do something too restrictive, you're going to have cravings for other things is very, very high. If I don't give you something to look forward to, you're going to crave those things even more. Okay. Now, with what you were talking about in terms of if it fits your macros, I mean, I think that's just kind of like a catchphrase, you know. I've never really been somebody that was just like eat whatever you want, you know, because I understand that food quality is very important.
Mm,
And I've always been somebody that recommends my clients to have 80, 90% whole foods. And then maybe that other 10, 20% could be things that actually help you follow your diet plan, right? Because what we're really talking about is transforming your lifestyle. Okay. If I have 4 kids, but you tell me, William, you can never have another snack with your kids, how long am I going to be able to follow that for? Right. If you tell me, William, you can't have anything outside of my food list, I'm immediately restricted to and I'm thinking about the things that are outside the food list. So I'm trying
mhm.
to get the mindset of a lot of this stuff out of the way so that my clients understand that we can have what we can kind of fit in what we want, and it's not going to negatively impede progress as long as we account for it within our macro bank account or our macro allotment. So I'll provide you an example. I work with like 75% women, and I work with a lot of men too, but probably 75% women. And something that happens all the time is a woman will hire us. She'll see her program, and she's like, "You're not restricting anything that I can eat." And I say, for right now, I don't necessarily need to because there's no immediate biofeedback signals, or you're not symptomatic of anything that would flag us from not having the ability to have some things that you enjoy. Okay. And she would say, "Yeah, but my entire life I've never done a diet where I could eat like chocolate, right?" And I would say, "Okay, well, what kind of chocolate do you like?" And she's like, "Oh, I just like dark chocolate with salt on it, right?" Just as an example. And I say,
Mhm.
"All right, well, can you eat a chunk of dark chocolate every day for the next week?" She'll be like, "What? What are you talking about?" I say, "Just account for it, okay? It's fat, okay? It is a fat source, and it has some carbs in it, but just account for it." And she'll account for it for a week, and a magical thing that happens after usually 1 to 2 weeks. When I get the email, she'll say, "I don't want to eat the dark chocolate anymore." Right? Or, it could be anything. It could be ice cream, it could be whatever. If they don't have an immediate red flags, something that's going to make me do more of a holistic style diet, maybe a Mediterranean style diet or something that's 100% wholesome, clean, single ingredient food, I want to have them be flexible.
Mm.
And so that for me, a lot of them it's conquering like food fear. So a lot of these people, men and women, they're scared to eat specific types of food. And this was something that I learned a lot about when I was prepping for bodybuilding shows, was that I could have specific types of foods that I really wanted. And as long as I accounted for it, my metabolism, which is every single physiological process within the body, my metabolism would metabolize it regardless of what it was, as long as I accounted for the calories. So I'll just provide you an example. I made homemade uh, bacon cheeseburgers, okay, every week that I was in competition prep. Just one, just one, because I just wanted to taste the burger. I needed red meat. I loved it. And I was
Mhm.
like, if I could just eat this with sweet potato fries once a week, I'm good. I'm good. Right. And so I learned so much about dietary adherence just from doing it.
Dude, where were you in my life back in 2019, 2000 or 2009, 2010? I was eating so much orange roughy. I was eating
Yeah.
so much orange roughy that I had to
Yeah.
wear diapers. I
Oh,
literally had to wear a
wow.
diaper because it was
Wow.
just there's so much oil coming out of
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
backside.
You
I
know what's
suffered
funny about that?
suffered through it.
I remember the video on YouTube where they documented Jay Cutler getting ready for the Olympia, and he was eating pounds of orange roughy. And the funny thing was, is like that influence led into bodybuilding, and next thing I know, everybody's eating orange
Oh
roughy.
my god.
And
Way was like
I
one of the
never had it. I never
yeah,
had it.
it was like one of the most expensive, pieces of white fish. So it about cleared out my bank account over the course of 16
Yeah,
weeks. But yeah, it
yeah.
was so uncomfortable. I mean, I was working in a corporate office and training at a gym, and I'd get up from my seat, and there'd be like a
Wow.
never mind. That's way too much personal
Wow.
stuff. Uh, I love what you said there though with like the restriction thing. It's like I mean we can go all the way back to kind of the beginning of human history here. It's like when you're told not to have something, like what's the first thing you want to do? You're gonna go get it.
Yeah,
So you're just teaching people
yeah.
self adherence
Yeah.
and self control.
Yeah.
Um, William, brother, I gotta. I mean, there were some other things I wanted to get here, but I mean, I think I think we kind of hit it on the head here. I appreciate you so much. I want to give you an opportunity here to plug your work, to well, first of all, what's on deck here for William and the Educated Dieter with 2021. I mean, a year into this new business. Any big things coming that we should be on the lookout for? And then
Yeah.
where can people find you if they want to get deeper into some of the education side of things? I think we kind of just kind of glossed over the top here.
Man, yeah, the last year's been a heck of a ride. We're starting a new company, bringing on one of my best friends to help as an assistant coach, and realizing that I can't do it all on my own if we want to create real big impact in the world. And so now
Mm,
we have two assistant coaches, and we have a curriculum that's called Advanced Coaching Systems, where myself and my assistant coach Gillis actually teach other nutrition coaches from all around the world, essentially how to be a better coach. We also offer one-on-one nutrition coaching for clientele worldwide within the Educated Dieter, which is our coaching company. And I will say we don't sell programs, we sell coaching. We sell
mm.
ourselves to help you achieve your goal. So every single client that works with us gets a one-on-one coach that they can check in with 24/7. They have an update every week. We talk to them every month via Zoom, things like that. And then we also have some free products that are going to be coming out that'll be available on the website. And then I'm also creating a new product that's going to help fitness coaches learn how to better serve the female demographic of client, because I get
Mm.
so many inquiries from people that say, I worked with a coach, this is what happened. So I want to be the vessel that allows coaches to learn more about, you can't diet a woman the same way you diet a man.
Love that. Love that. So we got the educated dieter
Yep.
.com.
Yep.
Is there a site? Is there a place where they learn more about the ACS, the advanced coaching systems?
So we're working on a landing page right now for advanced
Okay.
coaching systems. Right now, it's just kind of word of mouth, and you guys can follow me on Instagram. It's William_Grazione, whether that be through the Instagram stories or Instagram posting. We do talk about that. We launch it, 3, 4 times a year,
Okay.
onboard our clients, and then teach them over the course of about 6 weeks or so. We're always open to accepting new clients. And yeah, I mean, obviously, every single client we have the opportunity to work with is a blessing. So, really appreciate you having me on, Frank. Really appreciate the impact that you're having in the world, helping men. Leading as a Christian man, and being the light in so many men's lives. I mean, obviously, I see the work that you're doing, and I respect the heck out of it, brother. So, I just want to take a moment publicly express how amazing what you're doing is.
No, no, thank you, brother. It's like I said at the beginning, this was something that was long overdue. We had talked about it kind of in passing multiple times, and I think we over delivered on what I was expecting to get out of here. So we always have one question that we wrap up here.
Yeah.
There's a name of the show, and it is the Superhuman Life, and you know my story. I mean, I've shared it with you. When I talk about living a superhuman life, it's not so much like there's this tangible thing that we're pursuing. For
Yeah.
me, it's about a belief system. It's about a belief that we all were created for a very specific purpose, and when we can harness that belief inside of us and use that purpose for the better good of others, while still taking care of our vessel, truly building our greatest physique. We were only given this one body. That's what that's where I go when I talk about what it means to live a superhuman life. So I always like to get the guest take on this. So William Grazione, how would you define living a superhuman life?
Man, spur of the moment question. That's a big one. Uh, man, I think living a superhuman life has to not only involve yourself, but it has to involve a higher power that allows you to become superhuman. You know, Thinking about it, I think we're all blessed and highly favored with the opportunity to show up in the world and be whoever we choose to be, and create the impact that we choose to be able to impact in the world. We can create that. And I think that, individuals that do have this higher power as a part of their life that lives in their heart and soul, they can show up greater in every facade or in every avenue that they decide to take, whether that be as a husband, whether that be as a business owner, whether that be as a father. whatever it is, you have the opportunity to show up not only with just yourself and your own being, but you have the opportunity to show up with a higher power, and that higher power is superhuman.
Amen. Amen. It's about using our adversity, overcoming our obstacles, and seeking the opportunity, which was a highlight here of everything in your story and in your life, man. So incredibly grateful and appreciative for you and the work that you're doing with, not just helping people, but impacting and educating those so, that they can continue to pass it on. Brother, it's been an incredible conversation today. I look forward to seeing you. If not Thursday, I'll see you Saturday morning, hopefully. But you guys out there, you heard it here, man. This was a jam-packed conversation. So we got all Will's stuff plugged down there in the show notes below. So make sure to give him a follow. Reach out to him and his team over at The Educated Dieter. But Frank Rich here, guys. We'll see you next week, and we love you.